Hello everybody, welcome to Wonky Ankle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And, it's time for another top 10 list. I almost skipped out on making this list because I thought it wasn't going to make for that interesting video. Jarre is the kind of artist who I think is more interesting to talk about from an album-to-album basis than he is talking about individual tracks. In fact, I was planning for a while on replacing this video with one ranking his albums from worst to best. I may still end up doing that later, finally get the last cliched YouTube music critic format I haven't implemented yet out of the way, but those plans kinda went out the window when Jarre announced Equinox Infinity, and I'd have to wait and hear that before I do a proper ranking. So, here we are anyways. I'm still itching to finish this series that's been going on for months and move on to the next one. Now, I really don't think there's much point in introducing Jarre at this point. Kind of one of the biggest names in electronic music history, helped pioneer the genre and popularize it, bring it to so many people, been around since the 70s, yet still remains interesting to this day, and didn't really have a bad period or fall off the map at any point. Already one of the most name-dropped artists on this channel, but like I said, I think discussion on his albums is a lot more interesting than on individual tracks. This is not going to be one of my more interesting countdowns, I will warn you, but I do it for everyone else. It wouldn't feel right not to do it for Jarre as well. So, let's get into it. Obviously, this is just my opinion and you can feel free to disagree with it. This isn't based on popularity or anything, just my own personal enjoyment. Even if a lot of my favorites tend to be more popular ones, that's just coincidence. And this list only reflects how I feel right at this moment, may not reflect how I feel in a month or even directly after I finish uploading this video, but I don't know. It is what it is. Let's get right into the top 10 best Jean-Michel Jarre songs. Number 10. Zulukology from Zuluk. This spot had a lot of competition, honestly. There were a lot of choices I could have gone with. I wanted something from Oxygen 713 or some more obscure pick to start us out. And I do admit to having problems with this particular track, namely the fact that the voice samples go tit, 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 and I'm not 100% sure if Jarre knew how, silly this would sound, but it still made the list. Cause this just means more to me personally. I don't think about what the voices are saying most of the time. I just know the track got a ton of plays when I was in high school because that main melody and punchy 80s production just totally sells it. Despite its lack of self-awareness, which honestly if it was more self-aware I don't think it would work quite as well, it has this undeniable charm to it that it can overcome that for me. I've listened to it tons of times over the years, and it'll remain the theme song to his Zuluk album. Very silly track, but it still became a classic Jarre staple, and I think that well speaks to its quality. Number 9. Je me souviens from Metamorphoses.
Je me souviens.
Here we have probably the most obscure pick for the list proper, and it isn't really even that obscure, but I really wanted to put something from Metamorphoses on this list, and it was a really close race between this, C'est la vie, and Tout est bleu for this spot. But I think this is the one that sticks out in my mind the most. The classy, modern techno beats with smooth piano melodies that stick in my head, Laurie Anderson listing off nouns that might appear in dreams. There are so many fantastic tracks on this album, some of which are stranger for him or deserve more attention. And not that this doesn't as well, but as an opener to what I believe to be Jarre's most underrated project, this really is a great track to let you know what you're getting into, with Jarre entering into the new millennium and the digital era, hooking you in for even more great things to come and really feeling like he was totally ahead of the curve. Don't miss this track or this album. Number 8. Equinox 7 from Equinox. Don't really have much to add to this one. The suites of part 5, 6, and 7 from this album all make for an incredible and cohesive little piece that helped really define Equinox as a worthy successor to the classic we all know and love. I mean, I also love part 5, obviously given how I used it as the buffer music, but Part 7 has to be my favorite in this suite, as it's kind of the big climactic finish, the most emotionally rewarding in the bunch, and maybe the emotional high point in the whole Equinox album. Maybe either this or another one later on in the list, but we'll get to that. Number 7. Last Rendezvous, Ron's Piece from Rendez-VOUS. Speaking of emotional high points in Jarre's career, this may be the most emotionally charged track Jarre's ever put on wax. Originally conceived as a piece for astronaut Ron McNair to play on the saxophone while in space, unfortunately the rocket that was to take him off was Challenger, and he lost his life before he got the chance to play alongside Jarre. And Jarre repurposed the track and the whole Rendezvous album to be a tribute to the victims of the Challenger explosion. Maybe this piece is kind of reliant on that backstory to get the most out of it, but man, it is really harrowing like few other pieces Jarre's made, and the addition of the saxophone really helps it stand out among his usual synth odysseys. Depressing, but powerful. Number 6. Diva from Zuluk. So now let's get back to the lighter side of Jarre's discography with probably my favorite track on the Zuluk album. I think it's just the one that best sums up the appeal of this entire album, with the more mysterious and ambient-centric first half acting as a transition out of the dramatic experimentations of the opener, Ethnicolor, into the second half, which takes us into the lively and upbeat playfulness of the bulk of this album, all tied together by Laurie Anderson's gibberish vocals, and it all comes together really naturally in a consistently fun and enjoyable way. Now, I'm not going to go for the hat trick on this list and include Laurie Anderson's third collab with Jarre on his Electronica 1 The Time Machine project, mainly because that is not even close to as interesting. But yeah, this and Je me souviens are excellent, and this is my favorite of his Laurie Anderson collabs. Excellent track. Number 5. Waiting for Cousteau from Waiting for Cousteau. Now, honestly, I think it's a flip of the coin on whether or not this is an obvious pick to put on the list. It is kind of 46 minutes long, the longest of Jarre's entire career, and it's a singular ambient piece that doesn't really evolve or change at all over the course of the entire piece. I get it's not for everyone, but I never get sick of the sound of this track. The waves, the synth textures, and slow piano notes make for a super immersive listen, and one that I love wholeheartedly. It's so well executed as an ambient piece, I'd be cool if it went on twice as long. Cousteau may never arrive in the track, but I can wait for him as long as Jarre wants. Number 4. Oxygen 2 from Oxygen. Yeah, so when it comes to Oxygen, there's really nothing to add that I haven't already in my main review, and that basically everyone has ever said about this album. But a track like this does a great job of combining Jarre's knack for immersive ambient soundscapes with his ear for catchy melodies that get stuck in your head, and you get a timeless track that just transcends the entire genre. It's a track that only Jarre could have made, and exemplifies so many things that made him a legend. Not much else to say. Number 3. Equinox 4 from Equinox. Basically, copy-paste everything I said about Oxygen 2 and put it here. This one makes it higher since I just like the melody more, and the dramatic atmosphere gets a little more emotional reaction out of me, even if it is really close. But it's just another iconic Jarre track that stuck with me for years and needs no further discussion. Number 2. Industrial Revolution from Revolutions. One of the things that I love about Jarre is that he knows how to make something feel absolutely huge, and there's no better demonstration for that to me than this 4-part, 16-minute masterpiece that kicks off the biggest mixed bag album of his career. But every part of this piece is incredible, from the mechanical clanking of the overture to the dramatic and epic melodies of Part 1 and 2, to the smoky and dark outro of Part 3. all fitting together neatly into this vibe that simultaneously feels futuristic but like it came from a bygone era. The soundtrack to some strange and dusty, far-off steampunk universe. The kind of thing I can't help but look on in awe at its size and scope, but easily hum along with the main melodies that are just as catchy as Jarre is always capable of. Maybe some people might call it cheating to have all 4 parts of the suite occupying the same slot on the list, but I don't care, it's my list, not yours. And I love the crap out of this entire thing. But before we get into my number 1, here's some honorable mentions. Oxygen 10 from Oxygen 713. Tout est bleu from Metamorphoses. Exit from Electronica 2, The Heart of Noise. Chronology 2 from Chronology. C'est la vie from Metamorphoses. Oxygen 14 from Oxygen 3. Revolution Revolutions from Revolutions. Oxygen 8 from Oxygen 713. January 24th from Sessions 2000. Partners in Crime 1 and 2 from Tio and Tia. Close Your Eyes from Electronica 1, The Time Machine. Oxygen 7 from Oxygen 713. Zuluk from Zuluk. The Train in the River from Electronica 1, The Time Machine. Oxygen 17 from Oxygen 3. Right, I think that's a good enough place to stop, and now that we're through all those, my number 1's Oxygen 4. Big surprise, right? I know, real original picking what is probably Jarre's most successful and easily recognizable track as my number 1, but it couldn't have been anything else. This is the track that pops into my head whenever Jarre crosses my mind at all, or think about his career as a whole. As illustrious and varied as his back catalog is, and as much as I'd like to remind people that there is so much more to the man worth checking out than just the big obvious classic right here, I will also have to admit that the big obvious one is also the one that brought me into Jarre in the first place. It all started with this track for me, and he's never gonna have a track that has this kind of effect on me personally, or an album that just upends the entire genre like Oxygen did in 1976, with this track being the iconic theme song to basically represent his entire career. Classic for a good reason, and nothing else would have been more fitting to top this list. And that's it, but of course this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. Shout out to my Patreon supporters, they're awesome people. If you want to add yourself to that list or make me review something, link to my Patreon is in the description. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today, see you next time.